Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Qualitative Research Method class. I am Ms.Sharmili Chaterjee, Assistant Professor at the Department of Psychology at Kristu Jayanti College. Today's class is going to focus on thematic analysis. Assuming you all have collected your data and you are at the stepping stone of analyzing your qualitative data, we are going to focus on how to analyze our qualitative data through thematic analysis. In this lecture, we are going to cover what is thematic analysis, when do we use thematic analysis, and how to do thematic analysis, dominantly focusing on Brown and Clark's 6-phase framework. Let's get started. So before we proceed, we need to understand what are themes. Themes are certain patterns which emerges from our data. It can be any form of data. It can be any book we are reading or any interview we are watching or hearing. So when we are actually listening to our data, we may understand that there are emerging patterns. So that is what is considered as themes in simple possible terminologies. So let's proceed to the next thing. So first content, we are going to focus on what is TA or thematic analysis. It is a process of identifying patterns and previously discussed as it is identification of themes dominantly for a qualitative data. The best time to use the thematic analysis is dominantly when we have an interview data. The goal of thematic analysis is to give patterns or identifying emerging patterns. So it has been seen over a lot of research that thematic analysis is one of the easiest way of doing qualitative data analysis. So now, before we proceed to Brown and Clark's 6-phase framework of doing thematic analysis, we need to keep in mind that we can use thematic analysis dominantly when we want to understand the underlying patterns or underlying themes of the people or the population who we had interviewed. We want to understand and the step-by model, in the sense we sometimes have to understand the overall theme and the sub-themes associated with the specific data. In such situations, it's the best thing to use is to use thematic analysis. Now coming to Brown and Clark's model, it is divided under 6-phase model. So I'm going to overrun all the 6 phases before we learn each of the steps separately. The step 1 is becoming familiar with the data. Step 2 is generating initial quotes. Step 3 is searching for the themes and giving terminologies to the themes. Step 4 is reviewing our themes or going back and checking whether the themes we have identified is actually matching or is it actually meeting with the objectives of our study. The next one is defining our themes. It is giving concrete terminologies to our emerged data. And the 6th point is writing final write-up, which is going to be used for our publication or our research purposes. So the step 1 is becoming familiar with the data. So the first step of qualitative data analysis is reading and rereading our transcript. Transcript are typed material from our interviews. So before we proceed, we are going to sit and reread our data so that we understand what the interviewees intended to speak. So once we have read and reread all our data, or even whatever interviews we have done, we have read and reread our data, we can proceed in the same second part of the step 1, which is conduct initial read through where we are making notes while we are reading through our data. So in the first step, we read through our data. In the second step, we are making notes while we are reading. So while we are making notes, we need to keep in mind what are the different highlighted points, what is the central theme the interviewee intended to speak. So at this stage, we need to make sure that we are gathering as much information as possible so that we have an understanding what is the data all about. So in the process of becoming familiar, we need to keep in mind that we are using our even observed protocols or observations we have made during our interviews so that we can validate our understanding. We can often make notes regarding various categories such as reflective notes and descriptive notes, which can enhance our data analysis process. So this is an example of a reflective note. The difference between reflective and descriptive note is reflective notes dominantly deals with the emotional aspect of reflection while we are underlining and making notes. On the other hand, descriptive notes basically describes what is described in the interview data. So in reflective note, as you can see, it highlights or underlines and makes notes keeping in mind that there are various emotion or humane aspects associated with the interview. So certain amount of reflection done on the part of the interviewee can be highlighted through our reflective notes. Now that we are done with the step 1, we are going to step 2, where we are generating initial set of codes. Codes and coding are basically termed as labels or identifying factors. So we have made our if we have made good notes during our first phase, this step should be a very easy process where we are labeling the different terminologies we have used for our research purpose, and we are finding patterns or identifying labels. So we can label certain data saying that this deals with X component, this deals with Y component. So labeling helps us give an identifiable remark which can be used in our next step. So if in the initial coding phase, researchers simplifies the terminologies which we may have made during our reflective and descriptive note-taking process. Labels in simple terms, it basically when we are making labels for our qualitative data dominantly in the second step, we can use terms such like ideas which are surprising for us or is often repeated by our interviewees multiple times. Interviewees also sometimes specify that this is what it is happening and people don't know and speak about it. In such situations, such ideas can also be termed as labels, which we are going to use for our next step. We can also consider certain labels when an idea is reflecting a specific theory. Okay, so there are 3 aspects of coding: structural coding, descriptive coding and process coding. The first one is structural coding, where coding is based on the questions the researcher has asked. So if you remember, when you were doing your interviews, you had framed certain initial codes and initial ideas based on which you have framed your questions. Structural coding dominantly deals with coding done directly intending to the questions which are asked. The next one is descriptive coding. Descriptive coding is a basic topic or chunks of data, often seen as nouns or basic description to the specific idea. Process coding is basically understands the ing words, which are basically action words. So it tries to identify actionable factors which are there with our specific data. Now we are coming to the step 3. The first step we had made notes, second step we had made labels. The third step we are researching and searching for our themes. If you have understood from the first 2 steps, we are using some form of filtering to make our final data set more accurate and more precise to describe our specific research. So in the step 3 also it meets the similar requirement. So in step 3, which is termed as search for themes, themes are termed as subjective meaning we assign to a specific data, dominantly keeping in mind the cultural context of the data. So themes are produced at this stage are usually considered as preliminary, mainly because themes like we are trying to form patterns in this specific stage. In the step 4 is basically what happens, the identified themes are going to be reviewed. What happens is sometimes in the process of theme creation, we often have repetitive content. We may also have content which is not aligning with the data we are aligning with the objectives of our study. It can also happen that there is a lot of repetition. In such situation, reviewing themes is a very important step where we are filtering and removing the repeated data across our interviews. So these are so step 4, what happens here is we are reviewing and keeping the themes which are relevant for our study. So when we are in the process of reviewing, we have to keep in mind that themes are actually making sense which we have collected. Does it support the actual themes or the central idea, central objectives of the study? We should also check if there are emerging sub-themes. So if we see that it is forming a tree-like structure where there is a theme and associated sub-themes, we are going to form the pattern in this step number 4. And in the next one, what we are also expected to do in the process of reviewing is, while in the process from the previous step to this step, if a specific theme can be subdivided into multiple other themes. So are we actually having a space of creating multiple sub-themes or multiple themes from the step 2 itself? So reviewing themes is a very important step where we are rechecking our analysis idea. In the step 5, we are defining our themes. Defining themes is one of the important idea because it is going to state in concrete terminologies what we have studied and how we are forming the tree-like structure associated with thematic analysis, where we are creating the themes and sub-themes. So it is somewhere refining our theme terminologies which may have used in our labeling process or even in the step number 4. Here, when we are defining our themes, it is giving a concrete notifications and concrete defining factors. During this phase, we are rereading our themes so that we can come up with a concrete and precise terminologies which we can use for our final study. So in this process, what happens here is sometimes we can use peer debriefing, especially so that the terminologies which we are using for our study is suitable for our interviews, as this is what is going to make our study more refined and more concrete for our publication purposes. So the last step is writing the final review. Usually what happens here is it is the end point of our research where we are writing our themes and sub-themes in a manner which is identifiable, concrete, and is speaking about what the researcher intends to study. It also reflects on, so when we are writing our report, we should also keep in mind our literature review, which in qualitative we often term it as a priori and posteriori. So we have to keep in mind that the literature which we have used is dominantly supported by our interview findings. So this write-up should be inclusive of direct quotes, what we have used from our interviews. We should use and describe our themes and sub-themes accurately. And one of the most important thing, which is our literature review, should be presented in the most appropriate manner. So this is a very basic structure of a themes and sub-themes table based on thematic analysis. As you can see, the theme for this particular data set is gender and labor, where we have added a short description to add on to the understanding of the interviews. Then based on the gender and labor, we have added certain subcategories and added the description, and along with that we have also added the direct statements which the interviewee has spoken, and we have added it and validated our research. So this is a basic table which can be used for our thematic analysis. Along with this, we should also be writing a description or a detailed report regarding our literature review to validate our understanding of the specific research. So these are my references. Thank you everyone, and in this class we have focused on how to do thematic analysis using Brown and Clark's model. I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you.